Hi, friends. So, this is going to be the way that we reflect on our learning thus far, as well as share some information with our families. So, it's a little bit of a twofold type task. You're going to be able to identify some areas that maybe you can grow, some things that you have learned, some ways that you can kind of know where you are and where you're going and how you're going to get there, which is really, really important process in learning. And it's also going to help communicate that to your families. Okay, so this is what I'm going to share the sample with you so you kind of have an understanding of how much you need to put in and how to access information and things like that. Okay, because this is not, I don't want this to be an overwhelming project, but I do want you guys to start to develop some skills that are social emotional skills, which is, and regulatory skills on how to self assess and self monitor. Okay, so this first slide, well, first of all, on the very first slide, make sure that you put your name here. I'll be able to see that it's yours up here, but it's just nice to have it in the presentation. So make sure you put your name here. And also, if you want to change the style or the color or the size of the font, you're welcome to do that too. Okay, the next thing that you're going to do, um, I I divided up three areas of some ways that we're learning geography in this class. So the first yellow box is going to be an opportunity for you to identify what issues in the world you now can talk about that you not, maybe could talk about a little bit before or maybe not at all. And I want you to kind of expand on that just a little bit. So as a sample student, the student said, global poverty is something I can talk about now. Maybe I didn't know a whole lot about it before, but now I can talk about it from an academic standpoint. COVID-19 and the spread of of the pandemic, I can talk about that from a geographic perspective now. And then one area that I explored on my own was gender discrimination. So I can talk about these issues economically, politically, socially, environmentally, in ways that I couldn't before. And I can talk about where they're happening, why they're happening, and why I should care. So the what is happening where, why there, and why care. That's something that I never really did before, but I can do it now. Okay, the orange box is places I can identify in the world. So that's my geoliteracy. And I'm just going to be honest, I can mostly identify all 50 states. I still mess up every once in a while. I can mostly identify major cities in the Midwest, and I can identify all the major regions in the world with accuracy. Okay, vocabulary that I can use confidently. Friends, I do not expect you to list all of the vocabulary we've learned in the class. I would like you to think about what words that come to your head immediately that you know in conversation you could actually use confidently. So, this sample student picked standard of living. Talk about that. Choropleth maps now. I use those so much more. I know what they are. Demographic information. I can use that word demographic instead of just saying the word like stuff about people. I can actually say demographic information about people. Development, I can talk about what that means. I can identify what countries are core countries, periphery countries, and semi periphery countries, and what that actually means. And that scatter plot activity really, really helped me with that. Okay, so remember, I'm sample student talking. Okay, so then 21st century skills are the skills that we need to develop in order to have a job in the work world after we graduate from high school. So things like communication, things like being able to innovate and creatively solve a problem, being able to think critically about issues. These are things we're working on in this class. So I want you to talk about that. How are you becoming a better communicator? How are you working to solve problems? And that doesn't mean just geographic problems. Like, I'm not asking you how to solve poverty, but we're thinking about systemically, why does poverty happen? So now we can think geographically about them. But even more so, in what ways are you learning how to solve problems? Like your Google Meet doesn't work. Okay, you're learning how to troubleshoot or reach out for help. These are all skills that we're developing that someday when we want to apply for a job, we're going to be really good at these things and we can say that we have learned them. Okay, in terms of critical thinking, the number one most important thing we've been working on in this class for critical thinking has been evaluating sources for credibility. So you are learning how to identify different ways that sources are credible, and you can decide, okay, is this publication reputable? I can look at the ad fonts media, the media bias chart, and determine if it's got a reputation for bias or if it generally presents facts that are believable. I can determine if the author is an expert. So anything that you can think of that you are doing in this class that will help you to learn how to think critically about important issues. And then finally, SEL skills, social emotional skills. We are working on how we can manage anxiety. We're working on how we can make connections, which is really, really hard when we're social distancing. And we're learning how to identify our own feelings and be self aware. So these are some sample student responses about managing stress, sample student responses about how to make sure we're continuing to connect with other students, with teachers, etc., and how we can use that target to identify, okay, there's some days I am not okay, and I need to make sure that I'm aware of that so that I can manage my emotions and still be productive. Okay, so that's SEL. Then I do want you to identify your biggest strength. So my sample student is saying that it's managing time and prioritizing work, which sample student is learning how to do because there's so much flexibility working from home and remote that you have to decide what is it that I need to get done now and what can I work on at another time. Asking for help for sample student is the challenge that they are working to overcome. Sometimes you just kind of let things go and say, I'll just take a low grade, or you just stress out. So, asking for help is something that sample student is working on. Okay, for this, I would like you to go into your email and look at your results for your vocabulary for Module 1 quizzes. So you've taken it a couple of times. What were those scores? And then for geoliteracy, what was your best score? Okay, so again, I've sent your scores to you so that you can kind of look back at your results. And obviously, they didn't count for a grade, they just counted for if you did it or not. Because I want the skill is really just self assessment, not whether or not you got a 72 or a 92. That's a high stakes thing that we're not doing in this class. Okay, so I want you to share this information just so that you can be aware of what you're learning and how many tries it's taking you and whether or not you're reaching your goals and getting better. Okay, the next slide is just what am I learning from taking self assessments? This person, sample student, is learning sometimes they rush and don't look at the question carefully, or they're learning that multiple tries is what really, really helps them to understand their spatial awareness and where things are located. Um, one thing I hope that you guys are learning is that you don't need a grade to motivate you to learn, that you can actually try things over and over again because you want to meet a goal. You want to get better at something and learn. And in the end, your grade will end up reflecting that because you learned. Okay, I have given you lots and lots of feedback. So to access your feedback, go to your grades and you'll be able to see grade comments. If a grade comment says open the doc and look at feedback, then that's where you're going to see the actual feedback. I'd like you to grab one of couple of quotes from feedback that I've given you and just copy and paste them into this slide so you can access them and be mindful of them and be like, okay, she is giving me feedback. She's encouraging me. She's telling me what things I can fix. I can go back and revise. I want you to identify that. No more than 3. You don't need to put in all of them. Okay. And then what to do with the feedback that I gave you. The feedback might have just been keep doing what you're doing, great job. The feedback might have been I would like you to go back and revise something. If it's that, then you probably should go back and revise something. Okay. And that's something that some of us have been doing pretty regularly, and it does help not only us for us to learn better, but it also helps impact our grade in a positive way. Okay, um, what is something that you actually haven't gone back and revised or revisited that you can, okay, or that you would like to? So this sample student said the Module 1 end of unit assessment, they're going to go back and revise that. They haven't yet, but they're going to. And then what's your percentage on hack? Okay, because all of this is connected, and you have the power to revise something or go back and relearn it. If it's a struggle, then you can ask me for help, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, but I want you to identify that percentage. Okay, so what's your goal for this class? Do you want to bring up your percentage? Do you want to revise work? What do you want to get better at? And then what is it that Mrs. Sheeler can do to help? Okay, sample student said, just please keep giving me feedback. That's really helpful. Let me revise my work. Don't stop doing that because that's why my grade is so good. And then I would like you to send a message to your family. What is something they can do to help you to achieve your goals? Okay, all right, so now it's your turn. This was your sample. Please do not copy and paste from the sample. But I want all of this to kind of generate from your own words. Again, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by this task. I want you to be transparent and honest with yourself so you can kind of get a snapshot of where you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. Okay. And then this is going to be shared with our families. All right. I will see you soon.